Our final contributor is Elizabeth Stewart. She is a career appraiser of fine art and antiques, active in the field for 30 years. She serves the Santa Barbara County area and has appraised for clients nationwide. She's a docent and guest lecturer for the Santa Barbara Historical Society. She travels nationwide with her own Antiques Roadshow, which she presents for nonprofit organizations as fundraising events. Her first book, Collect, Value, Divest, The Savvy Appraiser, was released in December of last year. She writes a weekly column aptly titled Ask the Gold Digger for the Santa Barbara News Press. Elizabeth Stewart.
What an honor. In the winter of 1983, the Mill Valley Public Library was small, dim, underfunded, a repository for, amongst other mundane literature, donated Dick Francis paperbacks and the like. I often hung out there mid-mornings there with a local ex-logger living in the hills above Stinson Beach who came to search for light porn. Those were the aging old hippie days in Mill Valley. I was training at a local junk shop. During the afternoons, it was a place called Dowd's. Newly married to an artist, I was directionless, career-wise, and I needed a night job. So I signed on as the midnight shift public library reshelver, starting work at 8 p.m. My boss, Gabrielle, was a new PhD grad in library science and therefore had one of the first library computer programs in Marin County. She was determined to modernize the Mill Valley Public Library. Do we be damned, she'd say, working long hours on that huge computer monitor, perusing hundreds of yellow cards culled from the light Maplewood card catalogs that ranged high around the reference desk. As the graveyard shift shelver and newbie computer illiterate laborer, I was perhaps destined to become a thorn in the sides of both library modernization and Miss Gabrielle. My job was to heave return books from the red-rusted, metal-hinged rock-box station in the front wall, leaving them to my rolling cart with its double shelf. Remember those carts? After riding the books around the darkened libraries in the very late evenings, I would pair books with circulation cards, repocketing the cards in the front flyleaf of the books, and then restock the shelves. Part of the job entitled the good reshuffle of those cards stacked and waiting to be computer entered on Gabrielle's desk. And they needed to find their bookmates, disordering Gabby's systematic modern entries at night, and I set modernization back a few weeks each evening of my shift. I was often reprimanded by Gabby. I was always tired. My feet hurt, I remember, but my primary memory remained the smells of a midnight deserted public library. The cards, when I repocketed them, sometimes smelled like a breakfast table with a toaster. Sometimes they smelled of a public pool when kids are rough at splashing play. Or they smelled of a lonely Italian dinner, just for one, redolent with wine stains. Corners of cards could be turned down, having been deployed as toothpicks. Random phone numbers written in pencil were often paired with the smell, suspiciously, of public bathrooms. Only the birdwatcher's guide's cards smelled fresh and clean. Around 10 p.m., when I had a good stack of semi-damaged books amassed on that red cart, the matching smells of glue from the glue pots on the reference desk mingled with the smell of the snowflake fine crust of the backsides of torn or loosened pockets. They needed to be re-glued. They were falling over the floor. That was my job. My hands were often sticky, adhesive to stray sheds of paper. The stately and venerable yellow varnished card catalogs in the shadows smelled of buttery maple, the kind of nice hardwood smell of a well-handled old dinghy in the late night waters. Their patinated brass bale handles smelled of the aging sculpture in Union Square, that verdigris green smell of bronze, turning historic. The small brass windows, and those were little squares containing tiny remnants of the alphabet on the face of each drawer, smelled like a kindergarten in the 1960s, weathering a dry summer vacation. Each section of the dark little library had its own odor. I didn't need to turn on those hanging tin ceiling lights to know that I was in the kids' book section. The smell of pink gum hiding under miniature oak chairs, spilt milk, and cookies from treats at daytime golden treasury hours gave it all away. Likewise, the bologna sandwich smell of the new releases at the front door, smoke of lunchtime brown bag browsers. The Dick Francis shelf, always the fullest, smelled of martinis and money. Damon Runyon close by smelled the same, only seedier. In the broom closet were stacked haphazardly, soon-to-be deaccession paperbacks with their smell of yellow cellophane tape aged and peeling off oft-repaired covers. That Scotch tape smell couldn't hide the dusty, fine, sweet smell of wood shavings, those fine shavings janitors used to push around, which were piled in a heap in the closet corner, mixed with gray dust bunnies and double mint wrappers, partially hidden by a 4-foot-wide industrial rag broom. Cleaning solvents in big, tentatively bulging bleach bottles smelled of fake oranges or fake lemons through the plastic. The hardcover fiction aisle smelled of modern chemicals. Laminated see-through dust jackets smelled hot and dangerous, threatening to crack and stab as they aged. The saddle stitching of the oldest, driest, somber-covered fiction from the Victorian era smelled like Yankee Stadium baseballs mixed with darning socks. Contrasting the smell of the not-so-old fiction, the colorful, lucid, paper, dust-jacketed murder mysteries from the 1950s and 60s brought me into the 20th century. The glue of the end sheets was redolent of school rubber cement, which could have been rolled into green, snot-looking balls when I was a second grader in the 1960s. Nonfiction, too, had a distinctive reek. In the automotive aisle, a smell of old, oiled machinery subtly perfumed the air. In the craft aisle, the smell of old ladies drifted by. In the sewing aisle, a smell of chalk and paper tissue patterns clung to my nose like a dangling thread. The adhesive case bindings of those really big manuals devoted to home repair and deck building and major gardening were delicate fingers smelling of garage workshops, amateur floral tables, and long, deep, serious, and deadly serious bonsai ceramic pots. At midnight, I used to take a break from shelving to sit down at Gabby's desk, opening my brown lunch bag. Mayonnaise and Wonder Bread spun around the sweet pickles and Kit Kat. The midnight smells and the midnight lunch stayed with me until the books were closed at 2 a.m. When that smell was sucked out, it was sucked out with the swing of the exit doors onto the cold, black, high loading dock. In the clean, damp Mill Valley pre-morning air, I breathed and fished for a flashlight for home.